to illuminate the often unseen mental health challenges faced by first responders, police officers, firefighters, paramedics, and 911 dispatchers by sharing their stories, fostering understanding, and promoting resources for support and healing. We aim to break down stigma, advocate for improved mental health services within the first responder community, and inspire hope and resilience. This is the Weight We Carry podcast.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back. I'm Bart with the Weight We Carry podcast, and today we are very honored to have Miss Deborah Green. She's out in California, a retired 911 dispatcher with close to 30 years in 911. How are you doing, Debbie?
I'm doing wonderful. Thanks for having me. This is great.
Thank you so much for coming on. I think I first saw you over on TikTok,
Yep.
and you have an amazing following and such a positive outlook every day, and it's wonderful to see your TikToks and see where the sidewalk ends. If you'd like to give yourself a little introduction, go ahead with it.
Hi, I'm Deborah Green. I'm a retired dispatcher with 30 years in law enforcement. I started life out as a military police officer in the California National Guard. Got hired in Sacramento Police Department in 1992. And then was hired with El Dorado County Sheriff's Office in 1994 and retired in 2021.
A long career for sure. So
Yeah.
I'm sure you've seen your ups and downs with everything that's been, that happens in our field, correct?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So if you'd like to, please plug your TikTok for everyone so where they can come and find you and get that positive start to their day every day.
So yeah, I'm on TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram with my daily, my outside dose. So if I'm not outside, I don't post. So on TikTok, it's at D911 Green. YouTube is Where the Sidewalk Ends, not the poem, the person. Instagram is also at D911 Green. So
Fantastic.
I post on all three.
You have quite a nice following, and like I said, it's so positive every day. It's a perfect way to start off the day to see your posts. So I thank you for that.
Thank you for watching.
Heck yeah, absolutely. All right, Debbie. So we'll get started here. Okay. Can you share a bit about where you grew up and what led to your career in public safety?
Oh my gosh. So I'm from Sacramento, California. I'm born and raised. Went to Hiram Johnson High School. I was in Air Force ROTC there, or junior ROTC. Decided to go in the military. I come from a family of public service. So my father was in corrections. I have an uncle in law enforcement. Everybody seems to have gone in the military at one point or another. I was actually the first girl out of my family to go into the military, which was kind of interesting. I joined in the Army, California National Guard, as a communications specialist because I was too short to be a military police officer. So once you get in, though, you can switch. So I switched and went to school for MP. My one and only deployment was in 1992 to the Rodney King riots in LA.
Oh, wow.
After that, I said no more. And my enlistment was up 6 months later, and I said, bye-bye.
Yeah.
But before my enlistment was up, I was actually in the academy for dispatch with Sacramento Police Department when the riots started. So I kind of had a break with the academy to go do that, came back, finished the academy. Then with Sacramento, they let me go on probation because I just wasn't fast enough for them on the radio portion. But they hired me back part-time as a call taker, which was nice. And then I continued on with a smaller department, got hired with El Dorado County in 94. So that's
that's the progression there.
That's a progression there. Yeah.
It's amazing. You're deployed for the Rodney King. I remember that. I remember that happening. I remember seeing Reginald Denny getting pulled out of the semi truck and everything. Yeah. So yeah, wow, that's amazing that you're involved with that.
When you see things like that on TV and you're watching, you're kind of detached from it because it's not happening to you right then and there. When you're driving into it, holy moly, it's like, hello, reality hitting you right in the face.
Yeah.
We drove into Long Beach right after we got there, and there was a working fire and active rioting just on about every single block of that city.
Oh my goodness.
So we
Pretty
came
scary, I
in.
would assume.
Oh,
It is
yeah.
scary.
I was pulling guard duty and I got shot at from the top of one of the buildings that we were near. And,
Yeah.
it was a scary feeling, noting, when you're going through training, especially in the military, you have that us versus them, but that them is another country somewhere around the world. It's a faceless entity. But when you're having to protect things and people from your own country, your own
Yeah.
state, it's a little different.
Sure.
It
I
really
couldn't even
is.
imagine. I couldn't imagine. So, Debbie, what was your experience like in the military before transitioning it over into law enforcement?
So it wasn't hard because I wasn't active duty. I was, National Guard's kind of that weekend warrior once a month, 2 weeks a year. So I didn't have that much of a big transition. I just didn't go there anymore. So
Sure.
kind of I went from military to paramilitary, I guess you would call it. So it's not
Sure.
too bad of a transition.
And like you said, coming from a family with a strong public safety, public service or safety background, how did that shape your mindset entering into your career with 911?
I felt good about it because I was helping people. And that's
Mm-hmm.
what I wanted to do eventually, is just help people. I did apply for Sacramento Sheriff, and that was in the early days of computers, and they sort of lost a whole batch of tests. And so mine was one of those ones that was lost.
Oh,
And
wow.
so I just said, I don't want to stand in that line. Those were the days where you would have 1,000 people testing for, 12 positions.
Yeah.
So, I just said, well, I have this job with Sacramento. It's on the phone. And after being in the riots, being on the streets, doing that protection service down there, I was very happy to be on the other end of the phone.
Sure. I'm sure.
Because I had little kids. So, to me, it was a good trade off.
Yeah, for me, coming from EMS, it was a hard transition for me, especially when you first start out going into the call taking aspect of dispatch, getting those phone calls and then not being able to put my hands on the
Yeah.
patient because I knew what needed to be done, but then I have to follow my protocols or whatever type of system that people use in their 911 dispatch center. So it was a tough transition for me. It wasn't very easy. And a lot of the people that came in and did really well in class and then in the call taking were the service industry people that worked in food service. They did really well. Me, I struggled. I struggled.
Yeah, there was only a couple times where I was like, let me get this headset off and go run down and grab a patrol car and go do the thing.
Do the thing. So, Debbie, you spent nearly 3 decades as a dispatcher, which is very impressive. What are some of the most intense calls or incidences that stand out in your memory?
Oh my gosh. Well, my very first 911 call was a mom who had found her daughter committed suicide in the bathroom.
Mhm.
So that kind of sets the tone a little bit. But
Sure.
really, I mean, there's not, you have that one, which is, the first trauma that I went through. But we had a lot of officer involved shootings that were kind of difficult as you're going through them. And most of them had good outcomes.
Okay.
Where my deputies weren't shot. Somebody from the public was, deceased sometimes. So you had to kind of deal with that and the backlash from the public for that. I think there was a few that involved children that were really hard. Deaths of babies and deaths of little kids, I think, were the worst ones. I think there was one time my supervisor we had dealt with the death of a child in a car accident, and the chaplains called in and they were talking to the supervisor, and all I hear is, well, no, everybody's fine here. Nobody needs to talk.
Mm.
And I was like, whoa. She didn't even turn around and ask. She just assumed everybody was good. And it's like, no. I would like to take a break and go talk to somebody about this. you know, because it hits hard, especially when you have little kids at home.
Sure does.
And so, you know, I think there was only a couple times where I asked that. And then my last critical incident in 2019 is where the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back as far as traumas go. I lost a deputy uh, in a shootout from an ambush for a call that they went to. And
Wow.
that was the worst night of my life and the fallout from that. And that's what caused me to retire.
I'm sorry you had to go through that as, you know, a first responder and then turning into a dispatcher. I hope to God, or knock on wood, whatever, wipe it away. I hope I never have to deal with anything like that, because that's the worst, because that's our job as dispatchers, is to make sure that every one of our people on the radio get home safe to their families.
Absolutely.
And that's what we take. I take that very seriously, you know, and I think every dispatcher on that side of the radio, we need to take that seriously. And that's our mission every day, is to give our officers, our EMT crews, whatever, the best pertinent information in a timely manner, in the correct information, and to make sure that they go home to their families.
Absolutely.
And I couldn't imagine that, and having to deal with that heaviness
that was a tough night.
there. I'm sure.
A tough night.
So, as you know, we hear traumas without being able to physically act. How did that affect you over the years?
Oh my gosh. I don't think it. I know there was some underlying depression and anxiety, which are, you know, the precursors to PTSD. When you pick up phones and you hear somebody shot my dad, you're listening to an active stabbing, you're listening to that mom that has just found her kid dead. I can't tell you how many of those I listened to. It's a trauma when you're hearing this, because you're the first person there, you're trying to calm people down, and you're unable to help that person physically.
Yeah.
You can't get in there and you know, do what you need to do. So you kind of stuff, and back in the 90s when I started, you stuffed it down. You know, suck it up and come back tomorrow.
Suck it up, buttercup. That
yes,
we
exactly.
hear so often.
You know, and that's what they wanted you to do, because if you can't handle it, I'm quoting everybody who's listening, you know, if you can't handle it, you shouldn't be here. So you just stuff and stuff and stuff. And, you know, my husband had a thing, he could tell when I was not doing well. And he had a thing where he called it poking the tiger. And so he'd poke until I just exploded in whatever I needed to explode, crying, yelling, whatever. And I was good for, you know, 6 months. And we shouldn't have to do that. I should have been in therapy looking back, you know?
Absolutely.
But
And that's what
yeah. So in 2015, I had open heart surgery and to replace a faulty valve. So afterwards, I developed what they call post-perfusion syndrome, which is a condition that they haven't really nailed down what actually happens. But there's also a symptom of a microbrain bleed, and it causes any mental health condition that you had beforehand that you didn't know you had to explode tenfold. So I had horrible anxiety, horrible depression. Plus, you have a PTSD from the physical injury. Even though you don't, you know, you didn't feel it when it happened, you still had it. And so I started, thanks to two very lovely coworkers of mine, kind of did an intervention and said, hey, you need to get help. And so that's where I started my mental health journey at.
And we hear it over and over with all the guests that come on. And we'd like to use this adage because we heard it from a friend of ours who was on, Josh Shimko, who's a police officer really going through it with the PTSD and PTSI. Think of your traumas and your mental health as a dam. And so as that dam keeps on blocking these sticks and stones and heavier water coming at it, if you take care, if you take care of those traumas as they come, then that dam is lessened. The pressure on the dam is lessened. But if you just continually let it build up and build up, it's going to start cracking, and then eventually, boom, here we go. The dam will break.
Absolutely.
And like you said, the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back, that's what happens. And I think where we're at now with people starting to talk about it is we can help these new providers that are coming in, whether it's dispatch or EMS or fire or police, prepare them better mentally for the things that they're going to come in contact with and see and hear and smell, and be able to understand that, okay, we're not supposed to see this as human beings. And yes, there is certain ways we can deal with these traumas in a healthy way so we don't let it build up, and then boom, then you see what happens. So I think, as you know, the old adage of suck it up, buttercup, we need to get rid of that stigma. And that's what we're aiming to do here.
Absolutely. If you have somebody, and I kind of put it this way, if you're out on the street in a patrol car and your partner is having issues and not getting help for it, do you really want that partner to be your backup? Or do you want a partner that knows he has issues and is actively seeking help?
Yep. Yes.
Which do you want? And we want to be healthy and we want to survive our careers. I mean, the way it is now, people are getting out after a couple years because of the traumas that they're hearing, and because of the stress that's related, and because of the culture that is still kind of there to if you can't handle it, suck it up or leave, rather than saying, hey, you're having issues, why don't we have you go to our department psychologist or psychiatrist or whoever and go talk, or get them help outside the department. However, we need to actively be that solution. And they need to look at those of us that have left under those conditions to get that input on what they need to do better.
I wholeheartedly agree. It is. If you want the professions to continue on and to not make it a revolving door, you need to foster your people and get to know your people. You need it starts with compassionate leadership, and that's what it is. So what were some of the signs and symptoms that made you really realize that something wasn't right with you?
I had a lot of anger issues. Okay. So both in 2015 and then 2019, 2020, I had two separate supervisors that micromanaged me into whatever it was. They didn't like me. They, kept poking in each one. So in 2015, I went and I was on a PIP. I don't know if you guys have them, performance improvement plans.
Sure do.
And I got off of that. I was kind of forced to resign my position as a trainer. And then in 2019 had another supervisor that did the same thing after my traumatic event. And that one caused me to go on to workman's comp. And then retire. But yeah, you can't have that type of supervisor, management, administration that's going to see maybe you have an issue rather and take you down a disciplinary route when you're actually having mental health issues and they need to do something different with you.
Yeah, it needs to be addressed. Absolutely needs to be addressed in that manner. Because like you said, I heard you say earlier on, you think you had some underlying depression and mental health stuff going on before you were exposed to the PTSD aspect of dispatch. And I believe with myself, I think that was somewhat with myself also, because I didn't reach out for like therapeutic help until just recently, the beginning of this year. And it really affected my career all throughout last year. I was burning through sick days just because I was so anxious to go into work, and it was bad. And my performance showed, and I don't know if they saw that. I know they saw it with me calling off for sure, but I couldn't do it. I was so, never in my life before I had a significant medical event in 2020. Never before that did I have anxiety. Working on the trucks, all that stuff, I never had anxiety. I think I had some depression before that, but I never, until that medical event, it blew up. Like you said, the tenfold, it was horrible. Like I couldn't sometimes leave the house because I was just so anxious. And it's not a way to live. And that's where it really shows to, like you said, reaching out and finally saying, okay, there's something not right. We need to get this taken care of because it's starting to affect my whole career, my life, my family, everything. And it's not a way to live. My quality of life is so much better now. I'm glad I finally reached out for the help, and I'm medicated, which is fine. You know, I take an antidepressant and it's fantastic. It felt like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders. My mental clarity is fully back. I became a CTO at work and I really enjoy the training aspect of our jobs.
Oh my gosh, isn't it wonderful? I love training.
I think the big thing with it is like we were just discussing was when you have these new people coming in, you want them to have a good career. You want them to be a good dispatcher because we care about the people that are on the other side of the radio and we don't want something bad to happen to them. That's it. I mean, I think it's that simple. If you have that type of mentality going in, that can create a better environment for the new generation of dispatchers, EMTs, paramedics, whatever it is on public safety side of things. And that's the type of people we need for sure.
Absolutely.
So Debbie, how did you first start seeking help, and what were some of the resources or techniques that helped you in the beginning of your mental health journey?
Okay, so in 2015, I did go to EAP.
Okay.
But after the first appointment, and it was really tough to get an appointment through EAP to find somebody that was willing to take me, which that kind of sucks trying to find somebody. But after that first appointment, I realized I'm going to need more help. And luckily, my health insurance, which is Kaiser out here in California, has a mental health department with it. So I didn't have to pay anything for the mental health care.
Good.
Which was good. And so I started with that with a therapist. The problem with that was that, number one, she wasn't really a trauma therapist. And with all the stuff I was going through, she didn't go through the steps to maybe see if I had PTSD because of my job. So every time and she wasn't, what do they call it, culturally aware. I spent the first half hour of every appointment describing the hierarchy of a police department to somebody who didn't understand it. And that's like 30 minutes that I could have been talking about something else.
Sure.
So that was kind of I was seeing her about every month for a while. Then I got with a support group for depression. So I just kind of went to that, and that was a weekly in person with, a group of people where it was kind of like AA, you go in and go, "Hi, I'm Debbie, I'm crazy."
We're all mad here.
We're all mad here. So it was that, yeah. So it was like, and then on my vacations, so I would go to that, and they also had another one. So I was going to Thursdays and they had Tuesdays. So I would like double up on this support group on my vacations, because I was trying to get myself better.
Sure.
And in April of 2019, they canceled that group. So I had to go back to just a therapist after that. And I was only seeing her every 6 weeks. And by then I had gone through like 4 therapists already. So.
And I think that's what we find when talking to other guests. You have to just find that therapist that you click with. It definitely helps when the therapist is public safety oriented, but I don't think it's always necessary. It helps for sure. Like that can get the ball rolling much better because they understand where you're coming from. But then on the flip side of that, you don't need to go in to a therapist that just is shocked by the stories that you're telling them. So it definitely behooves them to be understanding of what public safety does.
Exactly.
Sure.
Yeah, the gal I have now, I really like her. She's like, I don't care what your hierarchy was. I just want to hear what your problems are. And
Yeah.
so we really, and we also do telehealth. So I
Sure.
can just sit in here and talk to
Just
her.
like we're doing right here.
Exactly. We sit on Zoom and we chat, which is nice. But there was a time where, I was telling her something and just the look on her face, I go, let me stop for a second. I said, do you have a therapist?
Is this too much?
Tell me if this is, because it's a lot. It really is. If you're not used to law enforcement, It can be quite traumatizing just to listen to.
Sure can. It absolutely and that's the thing I think a lot of people don't realize as a 911 dispatcher. We get so involved in, I guess, the culture of it, then we fail to remember that normal people outside of public safety, they don't understand what's going on. And then when we just snap on them for is this really an emergency? Maybe to them it is. And that's kind of what people need to understand, that it's okay for them to not be okay with what we're telling them, because it's traumatic, and we get so desensitized from a lot of the stuff. So I think it's okay to even if they have the littlest problems, it's okay for them to be not okay with it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
All right, Debbie. So we're gonna get into it now. Okay.
Okay.
Some pretty heavy stuff. If you're able to walk us through your officer-involved shooting that changed everything for you.
Okay. A little backstory. Here in California, we can legally grow a certain amount of plants personally without, well, now I think you have to apply for a license. There's a whole thing. But back then you could only grow so many plants per person. So what people would do was, if you had 5 people living next to you, we could all have one grow together and have a bunch of plants, but they would all be on different prescriptions and things like that. Well, what happened was the cartels figured this out, and the cartels would go to these people and say, hey, why don't you grow this for us?
Oh, wow.
Rather than having, the 5,000 plant grows that they would have like in a national forest or somebody's farmyard or whatever, they went and did these smaller ones. So that's the backstory. So we get a call from a gentleman, and he says that he was had a prowler on the property in his marijuana grow.
Okay.
So we're going, okay. And I send the required number of deputies, and then I said, it's far out. If something goes squirrely, we need somebody else out there. So I sent a 3rd unit, and then the sergeant heard what was going on, and he kind of started out that way too, just for extra backup. Where they were located at would have been 30 minutes plus for any other backup coming to them. So kind of, it was in a very rural area. So they get there and they talk to the complainant, and they go out into the grow, and they are ambushed by 2 cartel members.
Oh my goodness.
My one deputy lost his life. He had a ride-along with him from another department. So it was an applicant ride-along is what we refer to them as. He luckily was armed, but he got shot also. And then my 2 other deputies did not get shot. They were able to get out there. So we were trying to raise my deputy that got shot over the radio. We were getting nothing. There was nothing. I heard that they had pulled him out and got him on the ambulance. So there's a lot going on in dispatch,
Sure.
when this is all going on. We've got everybody going out there because of the shots fired. I had other counties responding. I had other agencies responding. And the fire department was just down the street, so they were able to have an ambulance there very quickly. So when the ambulance got there and Brian was put on the ambulance, I kind of shoved that to the back of my brain and said, he's on the ambulance. He'll be fine. No problem. Boom, boom, boom. So I continue on. We had SWAT team respond. We had air support through highway patrol coming out with floor, because this was at 1:30 in the morning when this happened.
Oh, wow.
So air support's out there, SWAT team's out there. They captured one guy. They're going on with the other. Well, in between all of this, Brian had gotten to the hospital but had passed. Somebody, a civilian at the hospital, posted on Facebook that there was a deputy that had been brought in and was dead. Our patrol lieutenant was at the hospital and found out about the Facebook post. We had no idea about it at dispatch because, you don't have time to troll Facebook when you're in a critical incident. And so he called up and let us know that Brian had passed away. And we just, we were all a mess. I was crying in between transmissions, but I tried to do my best to shove everything, you're shoving everything down. I got a mission that I'm working on. And, for 3 more hours, I sat there while we got the other suspect in custody. But, nobody out in the field knew that he had passed until afterwards.
Yeah. I'm so sorry you had to go through that. It's everyone's worst nightmare that's on that side of the radio. So, Debbie, what were some of the immediate effects on your mental health after that incident?
Oh, gosh. A lot of, I don't know if you would call it survivor's guilt, because I wasn't out there. I didn't get shot at. But I had a lot of stuff going through my mind of, did I do everything right? Did I get the things there in time, in the proper order? And, you have all those things going through your mind. Did I cause this, type of thing? And then the fact that, your friend and coworker has just died. You have all that grief coming in. A lot of, you got the stages of grief. I was very angry for the longest time, and you don't realize it. You don't realize that you're going through all of this stuff, and not having a supportive supervisor that came in after. She wasn't on our shift when this happened. She came in after. So understanding, I guess, not being trauma informed, that, you have people that went through stuff, and then you're coming in to try and micromanage them. You can't do that. So there was a lot. I think anger was the biggest thing, because that was the first time not the first time I'd had anybody shot on the radio. We had 3 deputies shot in 2007, but they survived. But this was our first death. Actually, it was the first shooting involved death of a deputy in 150 years.
Oh, man.
For our county. And our county had he was the 4th one to die in the line of duty up until that, in 150 years. So only 4. We had a pretty good track record. But, and then you're dealing with, so it's not only yourself you're dealing with, but everybody at work. It's like, you drop in the water and you have a ripple effect of, you have those people that are involved, and then those out there on the, it just keeps going out. And you have all these people around you that are grieving. And so, you can only talk to them so much before it starts affecting you also. It was tough.
So what was it like navigating that disciplinary process while dealing with PTSD?
Oh, good Lord. You get on edge, angry, anxious every time you get, because when you're on a performance improvement plan, you have to have weekly meetings with your supervisor. Well, I'm having weekly meetings with this abusive supervisor, and it's just like, you walk in and she goes, well, nothing has changed this week. Then why pull me in the office?
Yeah.
That's my whole thing. It's like you've got this person that is obviously having issues and you're yanking them into an office one on one. Just say, hey, you're doing fine. Be positive and say, hey, you're
Yeah.
doing fine. We don't need to meet this week. Here's a piece of paper, sign it. I mean, it was just this whole thing,
And
and
like you said, I think the underlying mental health stuff that you had going on that just made it 10 times worse,
oh,
for
it
sure.
did,
For
and I
sure.
was crying on the way to work, crying on the way home, crying to my therapist, I mean, and I was going to therapy. I had immediately after the incident, I called for emergency therapy to get that started. I was utilizing peer support as much as I could, but it just wasn't enough. Luckily in August of 2020, and speaking of that, 2020, you're going and taking this traumatized person in 2019 and then going on COVID
Oh my
restrictions
goodness.
in 2020. So I couldn't go out. You can't go out to do any of the fun things you used to do anymore. I used to go walk the malls and go shopping and do things with I couldn't do it anymore. So that you're restricting that person even more, which made it even worse.
So some of those good coping mechanisms that you had were ripped away from you because of COVID.
Absolutely. And then in August of 2020, one of my other supervisors who had been going to college to become a therapist finally stepped in and said, "No, this year," she goes, "I'm taking over you." Even though she didn't work my shift, she was my supervisor after that. And she sat me in her office, gave me a stack of paperwork and a telephone, and said, "You're going on workman's comp. Fill these out, make your phone calls that you need to, and we're getting you help."
Finally took
That's how
someone,
that's how it should be done.
yeah, and finally took that good supervisor of yours to come in and be like, this is one of my people that we need to take care of them.
Yes.
And that's where comes that compassionate leadership. It starts at the top. It absolutely starts at
Yeah.
the top. So Debbie, at what point in that whole mix of 2020 and COVID, when did you realize you couldn't continue on the job anymore?
So I went on workman's comp end of August. I was seeing a workman's comp psychiatrist for about a month when she said, "You can't go back to work." She was the one who made the decision for me. So she
Were
signed
you
me.
relieved?
It was, when you're battling all of this and you want to hold on so badly. It's sorry.
It's okay. Take your
It's
time.
it's nice when somebody else makes that decision for you so that you don't have to worry about that.
I mean, after 30 years, that's a big part of your life, the ups and downs of it. And then I couldn't imagine either way, whether there's that sigh of relief to come in and with that supervisor to help you, and then the psychiatrist to make that decision for you. Like you said, it's going to be a hard balance for it, but I think that was probably the best thing
It
for you.
was. It was. And right after that, our Deputy Sheriff's Association found a scholarship for me to get me to a trauma retreat, which was awesome.
Heck
So
yeah.
I was able to talk it out with people that got it, therapists that got it, and help me find healthy coping mechanisms. And also, we had different kinds of treatment that we could go through.
Okay.
It was like a sampling. So they had brain spotting, which is similar to EMDR.
Mm-hmm.
So we went through an hour of that while we were there. Um, Massage. They brought in a Reiki person. Reiki.
Yeah. Yeah.
The magical people.
Sure.
Went through how to journal, which was nice. I got some really good time with that. And then also equine therapy. So
That's fantastic.
I got some time with the horses, which was awesome.
Good. So we know that or I'm sorry, not EMS, but 911 dispatch for you is a huge part of your identity. And after 30 years, I don't see how it couldn't be.
Right.
Other than going to the therapies and going to the retreats, what was your transition like back into being a normal human being?
My God. The first 2 weeks were kind of like being on vacation, because I used to take 2-week blocks of vacation towards the end of my career. I had a grandson born in September 2020, and I was signed off of work a month later. And a month later, I started watching him full time.
How about that?
The little boy saved my life, got me up out of bed with a purpose, and we've been best buds ever since. Kind of made my transition. He got me outside, so we have our little routines every day now. We get up and we walk. Now that he's able, he goes I let him run the playground, and, we come home and we do things, and I'm teaching him. He's a level 2 autistic. So I took a class on speech therapy last summer, and we've been working with him, and he's now talking in sentences and doing wonderful things and should be ready for kindergarten soon. So that's
How awesome
awesome.
is that? Heck yeah. Instead of you going to where the sidewalk ends, he takes you where the sidewalk begins.
Exactly. Exactly. And I also
Fantastic.
I have a job on the weekends where I get to talk to adults. So that's a good thing instead
Sure.
of just a 4-year-old. And I just kind of stay busy and do podcasts and tell my story and yeah.
And how grateful we are for that. Seriously, Debbie. Seriously, we're really thankful that you reached out to us to come on our show. It's fantastic. So you said your grandson is one of your best things. He saved your life, but what other coping strategies and resources have helped you most in your recovery?
So I still in therapy. I see her every 6 weeks, which seems kind of long, but I'm also doing some active stuff to keep the coping going. I'm a part of, it's called our Power of Our Story, the Power of Our
Okay.
Story. It's a online support group for first responders, and they have different days and times that they meet, and I go to Thursdays, and there's a group of us, and we are all trauma survivors, PTSD. And so we get to, just talk to each other, and which is good. So I have my weekly support group back again, which is nice.
Sure.
I have a weekly journaling and meditation ladies group that I have on Sundays. So I do that. I get outside every day if I can, if the weather
Get that
allows.
sunshine. That
Get that
sunshine.
natural vitamin D going on. I walk 3 to 5 miles a day with playground time, and I'm just kind of. It's funny. I mentioned to my therapist the last time I talked to her. I said, it's interesting now. I talk to you more about things my grandson does and things that happen at my new job rather than everything that happened when I was a dispatcher.
Hmm.
And I said, this is awesome.
Absolutely, it is.
So it's taken almost 5 years, but we're working on it.
It's always gonna be, and that's what I figured out also with therapy. And Debbie, I would like to pass along some of my resources that I have that have been fantastic for me. A gentleman named Dan Jarvis, he runs Tactical Resiliency and Healing the Hero. I'm going to pass you along his information when we're done here. I did one session with him, and it's the
Oh,
neuroplasticity
is that 220?
220.
I can't remember. I just did because my anxiety went on hyperdrive this last year.
Okay.
Just, to the point where I was physically hurting. I went to a program called Zero, and in 2 sessions it was gone. Amazing stuff. And I do
Yeah.
recommend that to people if they're online, and it's for veterans and first responders, and it's free. So
It might be some one and the
I'm
same.
thinking it might
It's
be the same one.
like Healing the Hero and Tactical Resiliency USA.
It
Mm,
has to do with visualization and kind of dealing with that specific trauma and changing the neural pathways in your brain.
Yeah. And we bounce back and forth between the traumas and the good things and the traumas and the good things. I
Hmm.
woke up the next morning, my brain hurt so bad. He was like, that's normal.
Yeah.
And it really helped. So if you already did, but either way, I'll pass along what I
Oh
have if
yeah,
it's the same
definitely.
thing. And he's doing great things. And I went in as skeptic, which I think everyone should go in. And I came out a total believer in it. And it's been amazing. My transition, like we said, we're always going to be working
Yes.
it. It's an ongoing issue or ongoing therapy with ourselves. But I think if you're able to, and if it's something different, I would highly recommend it because it's free to first responders and their families, and it's a
Oh yeah.
fantastic thing.
And then there
And
was another one, was kind of more faith-based, reboot for first responders, reboot. There it is.
okay,
And I went through two of those. They were kind of like, one was an 8-hour course and the other was like 12 weeks. So, and I got some good takeaways from that. I'm not a religious person, so I didn't,
I'm the same way. I'm
you know,
very
you kind of go,
spiritual. I'm not religious for
okay, but
sure.
there were a lot of takeaways, you know, therapy
Sure.
takeaways from it, which were good. But, just trying anything, I
And
mean,
I think that's the thing, being open and honest with yourself. Be like, hey, it can't get any worse, so let's try it.
exactly.
That's what I kept on telling myself. I'm like, we might as well try it. We're
Yeah.
gonna see. And I'm glad I took that step because, like I said, this past year, my family deserved that from me. My family deserved the real Bart and what I have to offer because all my creativity's back, my drive's back, and it's fantastic to actually have that back. And my wife and my son deserve that.
Oh, definitely. And there is so much out there. A first responder support network is a good resource. The Overwatch Collective, if you go through them, they can help pay for therapy for those that can't afford it. Healing the Heroes,
Mhm.
Warriors Rest, anything that is veterans based are starting to let first responders in. They have retreats everywhere. West Coast Post Trauma Retreat is a good one. And they, I believe, started one in Kansas City also, or in Kansas somewhere, and are
Okay.
kind of expanding from there because it's such a popular one to apply for.
Yeah. The thing that's still I'm really inside my head, I'm like, I can't believe this is happening. You're in California, I'm in Pennsylvania, and it's amazing that it's reached out to California and beyond, and thank you so much again. I'm gonna keep on saying thank you so much for reaching out to us because it solidifies what we're doing.
Hmm.
And I think the good thing of social media is this type of stuff. This is what it needs to be
Oh
used
my
for.
gosh, it's wonderful. I've met so many wonderful people doing this.
Yeah.
And it's not just that one time. I have connections with them continue. I was on John Kelly's podcast and I talk to him every once in a while, and Shielded Voices, I talk to them, and you have those resources of people that you can
Yeah.
go to talk to. I've been on podcasts in Australia and in New Zealand
Heck yeah.
and one in Canada. So, it's not just the US, it's worldwide, and we're all having these discussions, which is
That
even
says
better.
something. That says something. We're having the discussions, and it's worldwide. It's not just here on the East Coast for me or the West Coast for you. It's everywhere.
Absolutely.
So Debbie, are there any things you wish you had known about your mental health earlier in your career?
I wish somebody would have sat me down and said, this is going to really suck and go find your therapist now. And so
Everyone
that's
should
what
have one.
that's what I tell everybody. Go that first year that you are hired, or even now, if you've been in 20 years and you don't have one, start now, because we are not the same person we are when we first started this career. Not at all. And
Truth to
if you
that.
want
Truth.
to survive this career, having a therapist that you go see twice a year, 3 times, 4 times a year, and get established with them, when the proverbial poo hits the fan, you have somebody that you are have
already
a
grounded
relationship.
with. Yeah.
You know them and they know you, and then you can go to them and continue on and and find out all those fun therapies too that go along with it,
Yeah.
and be educated about this.
I think that's the biggest is all these resources are there. People just have to know to look. There's so much out there for people to reach into. And I think the big thing is now is taking that first step forward and be like, I need the help. And
Yes.
I need to start looking for it. And I think that's the first step. People need to be honest with themselves and be like, okay, I don't have to suck it up, Buttercup, any longer.
No, no.
I have some stuff that I need to talk about and get off my chest. And just Google it. That's the biggie.
And
We have everything is at it's light speed now. It's instantaneous, and we can all that help is there. We just need to look for it.
and these departments need to look to those that have retired and say, hey, what happened? What can we do
Mhm.
better? Utilize these people that aren't working for you anymore, that have retired, that even those that were there 10, 15 years and quit, go talk to them. Find out what's
Yeah.
going on and how you can do better. Departments need to hire on psychologists, have in-house people that you can go to, or people on the outside that don't work for you that you can refer and pay for on the outside. I know our former department had several people that we could go to. I don't know if they use them now, but just having psychologists and psychiatrists that you can refer, or in-house that can come in, train your chaplains more on trauma and more on counseling, because utilize those chaplains because they're a great resource to get people talking.
I think that along with the peer support groups are fantastic because your peers were going through the same thing.
Oh
We might
gosh, yeah.
not we might not be going through the exact same problems or dealing with the same issues, but we understand what each other are going through as a whole.
Oh, definitely. And we get it. I mean,
Yeah,
who would you
we
rather
understand it.
talk to? Somebody
Yeah.
on, that, yeah. I mean, it may not be a dispatcher that you talk to. Maybe it's another cop a cop that you're talking to, and you're the dispatcher, but you both get it. So,
Yeah.
it's nice to talk
Same
to.
team.
Yep.
Same team. So Debbie, what advice would you give to any first responders struggling with mental health and they're afraid to seek out help?
Go get help. Don't be afraid. It's
Yeah.
not a stigma anymore. A lot of the OGs in law enforcement are going away, and you're not going to have that old crusty dispatcher sitting in dispatch, being grumbly and telling you, oh, just suck it up. That person's not going to be there anymore. Those people in that, I mean, I used to be an old crusty dispatcher. Sorry, I no longer am, and I want to lift people up rather than smack them down.
Yeah.
And just get that help, and don't be afraid. And things are changing with reporting for EAP, so that they don't have names. They don't know that you're going for mental health. They just know that you're utilizing EAP, and they may not even know it's you that's utilizing it. So go out there and find help. Check your health coverage. See if mental health is covered under it. There are plenty of things online that you can use. I'm trying to think. Lots of online mental health support that you can go through. A lot of apps. Just have to turn on the TV and it's there.
Yeah.
And just get that help and do research and find out what you can do for yourself. Yeah, we're not we're not a stigma anymore, or at least we're
So
trying not to be.
right. So I don't know how it is. I don't know if it's even nationwide or in California. Are dispatchers out there considered first
Yes,
responders or
we
not?
are. And I'm trying to work with my congressman because the 911 Saves Act still has not passed yet. And so I'm trying to get a hold of my congressman, and I've been trying for over a year now. But call your representatives and get that passed, because that's going to be the national level of classification for dispatchers. And
It's
that's what we
huge.
need.
It's huge. And that's what I had the opportunity at my dispatch center. I was asked by some of my union reps to speak in front of State Senator Lindsey Williams, our county executive, and a few other state representatives in regards to PA House Bill 453, designated 911 dispatchers as first responders. So it gives us access to the mental health care and all kinds of stuff.
Absolutely.
So it's in the House right now. It passed the House unanimously.
Oh, nice.
And it's in committee and waiting for the Senate. So we're trying to get it pushed through, and I'm glad I was honored to be able and asked to give that speech. I've never been a public speaker before, and there was the news, and then I had a bunch of my peers, and then
nice.
all these state reps and county execs. That I was pretty nervous, but it was for a fantastic cause, and hopefully that in any sort of way, hopefully it can get it pushed through. And that's what we're really fighting for, because we know.
And there's also another bill, and I apologize, I don't know the name of it, that's supposed to be going through at the federal level, that will give first responders better access to mental health care and support. So do call representatives and push these through, because it's very, very important.
Yeah, absolutely. We're testaments to that, how important it is. How can first responders better support each other when it comes to mental health?
Get rid of the term "suck it up, buttercup." It's okay to not be okay, and just support people rather than, bringing them down. We want to lift people up.
Absolutely,
and we want to be able to do that better job than smash them down and get rid of them. Because law enforcement, first responders eat their own. It's not just cops. It's not just dispatchers. It's everybody.
All
we
of it.
just kind of
all of it.
Yeah. And it's not
That's
fun.
the shame of it. That's the shame of it. You expect these young kids, or not even kids, young people, to come in that have never been exposed to public safety before, and then be like, hey, here you go, suck it up. Or they'll just say, you're not built for it.
Yeah.
It's just not how it should be. I think the day
and
you
it's
come
not
in,
a job for everybody. I mean,
Sure.
I can't do things that people do, other people do. I was able to do that. I fit. It was great. We had one trainee, and bless her, I just thought she was fabulous. 2 weeks in, she goes, yeah, I can't do this.
Nope.
And she was and it wasn't the fact that there was but we were, trying to lift her up and get her, what she needed to do she says, I had rose-colored glasses on about this community, and I want to keep it that way. And because you find I wouldn't call it the seedy underbelly, but you find out what's really going on in your community when you're a first responder. So she just said, nope, this is not for me.
And that's I've always tried to explain that to my parents, or they have an idea, but unless you're really in it, you don't understand. And you see life differently. You see things for what it is. You like to always think, and I think as a whole, people are inherently good, for sure. But I mean, there's definitely evil out there, and that's why we have the brave police officers and everyone else who serves out on the street. That's why we have those type of people, because not everyone's built for those type of jobs. Nope. Not everyone's built for 911. And
absolutely,
it definitely, we are a rare breed, but we have to make sure that rare breed we stay healthy mentally, and along with the mental health, our physical health also.
Absolutely.
And Debbie, here we go. And again, all the way out in California, we're talking. It's fantastic. I'm still like gleaming from ear to ear. I'm super excited about it. And seriously, thank you so much for sharing your story. I know some of these things that we go over can be really tough, but I think as these podcasts go, they can be a therapy session all on their own.
Oh yeah,
that's how my wife and I we think it's the same thing. It's almost like it's free therapy.
It is. It's wonderful. And, it just, and not being, I think I was on one that was very structured, and it just having a conversation, a natural flow, free throwing conversation is great,
It is. Obviously, I have bullet points, but like I said before we even push record, like they can veer to the right or the left. It's okay. And it certainly has. Certainly has. But the last bulleted point we have for you, finally looking back on your journey, what message do you want to leave to our listeners and your social media and TikTok subscribers? What would you share with them?
It's a great job. I really enjoyed it. Maybe not some of the people I worked with, and it's a tough job on your mental health, but it was a good job. Just be aware, if you want to do it, that it's going to take a toll. So, yeah.
And reach out often.
Reach out often. And I'm always here. You can text me at any time.
Heck yeah. And same goes with you. You have my number. Or like I said, all those resources. I want to just pass along as many resources that I have available to other people, because I think that is our mission. That is our story here. It's our mission, our guest story, and we want to make sure that mission is complete with giving the help
and
to the
before
people
we
that
go,
need it.
I have the Bible, the Law Enforcement Mental Health Bible here. It's called Emotional Survival for Law Enforcement by Kevin Gilmartin.
Okay.
And everybody that is a first responder, not just law enforcement, can benefit from reading that. And it goes and gives you coping mechanisms and techniques and all sorts of things in there. And I actually got to see him in person, and he's just a great speaker.
Heck yeah.
So
it's always great to have those good resources, and like you said, the speakers, the people that just speak to you and you can click with.
Absolutely.
That's what just makes it so much easier to deal with the crap that we do deal with.
Yeah. And there's lots of resources, books, videos, podcasts, you name it, it's out there.
Yeah. Well, Debbie, I want to say again, we were humbled to have you on and humbled for you to reach out to us. We're so appreciative of you being on the show. If anyone would like to be like Debbie here and would like to be on the podcast, hit us up at twwcpodcast@proton.me. We would love to have you on the show and hear your story and any other things that you could bring to the table for us. We would love to get that story out there so everyone can check it out. Debbie, anything else that you'd like to add before we head out?
No, if I'm available on, from just to talk, my Instagram is at D911Green. My link tree is on that. On my Instagram, you can find me on YouTube, LinkedIn, X, Instagram, TikTok. I do TikTok. Who knew?
I know, right? That's how I found you. That's how I found you, was TikTok.
So yeah, it's just, social media is just, it's great for the community. And I've just found so many people that way. And no, you cannot get a hold of me on Facebook. That's for friends and family only. So sorry, guys.
Oh, fantastic. Debbie, again, thank you. We really appreciate you. It's been a fantastic conversation. I think we really hit it home, and we give all of our viewers another good episode for them to watch and learn from. Thank you again.
Thanks for having me. It was just great.
Absolutely. Thank you again. Love you guys.